And finally, a huge shout out to Kim and Stephanie, who will field your questions today, and to all of you. Whether you're a seasoned alumni of the International School of Healing Arts, a trusted retail partner, a loyal customer, or someone brand new to the Dr. Morse's community, we are truly honored to have you here with us. So grab your favorite herbal tea, settle in, and let's embark on this transformative journey together.
Yeah, stay tuned, guys, because we have a really enlightening discussion on the urinary system. So, first, and that's our first stop on the detoxification roadmap. We're diving deep into how this vital system works and how you can optimize its function for your vibrant well being.
Okay, so Dr. Morse, of course, is the reason we are all here. His life work is to unlock the body's natural ability to heal by supporting its regenerative detoxification process. For over 45 years, Dr. Morse has been educating humanity on how to remove obstructions in the physical and energetic channels connecting body, mind, and spirit through proper diet and the support of his transformative herbal supplement formulas. So feel free to ask questions using the Q&A webinar feature. So when you look at your kind of panel of us presenting to you right now, you should see a little talking box with a question mark in it. If you click on that, you can submit your questions. We have a lot of people here today. Thank you all for coming. Stephanie and Kim will do their best to answer as many questions as they can, but we might not get to all of your questions. We also might not get to a final minute Q&A, a final 10-minute Q&A at the end because we have so much to cover today, but you know, maybe. So if you don't get your questions answered, just head over to info@dmhhc.com. You can always submit your questions there, or you can join a live chat and we will be able to support you. And we always encourage you to stick around till the end of the presentation, not only because Jenn and I are awesome and we have so much amazing information to share with you about the urinary system. I don't know how we're going to put it into 1 hour, but also because we're giving you a discount code at the end, and it's the best discount code or the best discount amount we've ever given on one of these webinars. Very exciting. So stick around for that so that you can get a discount on all of the formulas that we talk about today. And I'll hand it over to Jenn to talk about our agenda.
Yes, and we do intend to have a lot of fun today and try to make this as fascinating as possible and simple. So we're going to cover the urinary system, anatomy and physiology, just talking about its component parts and how the system functions, especially filtration and elimination. Then we're going to go over protocols using Dr. Morse's herbs, his formulas, and Colleen's going to highlight specific herbs as an inner little herb walk through the protocols that we. Yep, whoop whoop. And we'll have some additional therapeutics at the end and just kind of recap what we discussed and in helping you achieve what you want in your health for your urinary system. So, and the detoxification process as it starts. So let's go.
Let's go. Let's do this. All right. I always like to start the day with a little kind of grounding moment. You know, why are we here? Why are we talking about the urinary system? And I always look to traditional Chinese medicine for this information. Traditional Chinese medicine, of course, has been around for 3,000 plus years, and it's been supporting people on their health journey a lot longer than I have. And it's just a really great resource. Really great resource. I knew I was going to hit that. All right. So I love this book by Elson Haas, Staying Healthy with the Seasons. It's a really beautiful book, really well written. And a lot of what I talk about when it comes to TCM perspective is based on what I learned in that book. Each season in traditional Chinese medicine, there are a bunch of different elements that are associated with the season, and you use these different kind of tools as a guide to support yourself and your health and well-being. And we are still in winter, believe it or not. I know it doesn't feel like it for me. I'm in California and we do have a beautiful spring day today, but there is more rain in the forecast. So, you know, winter is not quite over yet. And so winter is that time of year that's very yin. It's very withdrawn and inward and introspective and quiet. And water is the primary element of winter, which is no surprise. But of course, associated with winter as well is going to be the kidneys and the bladder. Makes perfect sense, right? The kidneys and the bladder are here to process all the fluids of the body. So a little bit more about what that means from the traditional Chinese medicine perspective. Kidneys are perceived as storing the energy of the life force itself and are related to birth, life, and death, and the cycle of transformation. So the seat of will or willpower itself is said to come from or be seated in the kidneys. So this can also generate ambition and a desire to do something with one's life. But conversely, the emotion associated with winter is fear. So you see how that kind of balances out. There's that duality or polarity there between willingness and willpower and fear. And so it all kind of just comes back to that connection to kidney health. So if you are feeling that emotion of fear coming up for you this time of year, look to your kidneys. How are your hydration levels? How's your fluid levels in the body? You can take your hands right now and warm them up. Put your palms together and create some heat in between your hands. And then you can take your hands and place them on your lower back, just right at your 12th vertebrae there. And that's where you can just send some love and gratitude to your kidneys for all the hard work that they do, which maybe you don't know anything about, but you're about to learn all about how hard your kidneys work for you. And yeah, so too much wet, too much cold is felt in the bones. If you're feeling discomfort in the bones or kidneys, get yourself warm and dry. Imbalances in the water element can manifest as rapid changes in the health of your hair, cravings, or a distaste for salt. So salt is actually the taste that's associated with winter, bone and kidney discomfort, and fertility imbalances. So that's all stuff to think of when you're thinking of how you can support your kidneys and why you would even want to support your kidneys, because all these other elements of your life are connected to the health and wellness of the urinary system. Jenn?
Absolutely. And that's one reason why we also started with the first webinar of the year being the urinary system. I mean, we are in winter, but we're beginning to, in some places, I know in here in Florida, we're beginning to experience the transition into spring and really starting to consider cleansing. Some people are in the middle of their New Year's resolutions and whatnot. So we really wanted to make sure that this first webinar of the year targeted the detoxification as far as that's concerned, the eliminative processes that are vital to your health. And yes, the lymph system is very important. So is the endocrine system, but your kidneys, your body's ability to eliminate, this is the main role of the kidneys in that, fluid balance. We're going to get into that. But this is why we're going to highlight this one, because this lays the foundation for all of you to move forward, and it really sets us up for 2024 for the remaining webinars for the rest of the year. So you can see how vital the system is.
Beautiful. So true.
And
All
now we
right.
can
Well,
dive in.
without further ado, yeah, let's talk anatomy and physiology of the urinary system. It's good to kind of have a visual of how this stuff lays out in the body and how everything functions together so that we have a better understanding of how to support this system. So here we have the primary organs of the urinary system. You've got the kidneys. Atop the kidneys, you've even got the adrenal glands. And then you've got the kidneys, the ureters, which are the tubes that bring all that excess fluid that's filtered out of the blood, out of the kidney and into the holding tank down here, which is the bladder. And then you've got the urethra, which allows all of that holding tank to be released into the world, returning the waters of your body to the earth. I just read a great quote in Staying Healthy with the Seasons that, all water on the planet has been here since the beginning of time. It never leaves. We never get any more. So even though it sounds kind of weird, returning your waters to the earth is just part of the cycle.
That's
And
very
then what
cool.
does the kidney, what does the urinary system actually do? So there's a lot of functions that it has, and this is probably the short list, right? It filters blood. That's like number one. Through that process of filtration, it's eliminating waste products from the body, and it's all about balancing electrolytes. So your mineral content in the blood is really critical to how well your kidneys are functioning, and the minerals in your diet as well. And then it regulates fluid and blood pressure, pretty important, and also helps to maintain that acid and base balance, so the pH balance within the blood, which we talk about a ton with Dr. Morse's and all of the acidosis that people are dealing with, right? The kidneys are here to help us, but we have to really support them in that. Also, the kidneys and bladder, or the urinary tract, mostly the kidneys are doing all the hard work. The rest of it's tubes and holding tanks. So the kidneys they stimulate red blood cell production, and that is a tie into the immune system because red blood cells are immune cells. And also the kidneys activate vitamin D. So those are the primary functions. And now Jenn's going to do a deeper dive into how the kidneys do what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. So on this slide, we can see a cut section diagram of a human kidney, and you can note the shape of the kidney, the blood supply to and from the kidney, the internal component of it, and that are responsible for filtration. So some of us do know, but not everybody. The kidney is about the size of your fist. It's a bean shape, and it is a purplish brown in color. And as Colleen demonstrated before, you have one on each side around the 12th vertebrae. It sits on the posterior body wall, so that's the back. And as far as further anatomy, you'll hear Dr. Morse talk about the adrenals, and the adrenals sit right on top of the kidneys. And the adrenals are important in so many roles in the body, but they also have a connection to the kidneys related to blood pressure and also the absorption of sodium. And as far as filtration is concerned, the nephrons are the functional unit. They're the little factories in the kidney that consist of glomerulus and renal tubules that are involved in the filtration and in the production of urine. So now we always talk about you want to make sure your kidneys are filtering. And yeah, that's important in just your daily process, but also in detoxification. So what exactly is filtration? Why is it important? And so yeah, we're going to talk about that part now and hopefully give you a little more insight into that. And the kidneys really do maintain a stable and relatively constant condition in the body, that homeostasis, so that all other physiological processes in the body operate as they should. And on this slide, you can see just Dr. Morse has this in the kidney filtration handout, but you can see how, not directly related necessarily for every individual, but how the urine can be represented or associated with pH in this the rainbow demonstration over there, with 10 being alkaline, it can go up to 14, and then 3 being acidic. 7 is in that green area, it's neutral, and your ideal urine pH is about 6 to 6.5. So, and urination is one way the body removes wastes and excess amounts of minerals. We don't need to retain everything by any means, because that can cause its own problems. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean if it's too alkaline? Yeah, well, minerals or electrolytes, they're used to help control the fluid content inside the body, but your body only needs so much. So these excess amounts in healthy kidneys are eliminated. But if they can't be, just think about it. It can disrupt your blood pressure and your heart function, like your heart rhythm. And that's just a couple things. And if it's too acidic, well, that's a retention of waste that contributes to the state of acidosis further. It continues to disrupt your natural body system functions. And you can even get some of that unpleasant discomfort. And it's not just associated with too acidic, swelling, that fluid retention, nausea, vomiting. You just feel lethargic, maybe even dehydrated. So that's something to keep in mind. You can feel that pretty much any stage, too alkaline or too acidic. And one thing I left in the slide too is talking about creatinine. You've probably seen so many Dr. Morse's videos where he talks about your creatinine levels and, in blood work and whatnot. And it really is an important indicator of kidney function. It is directly related to how the kidneys operate and filter. Creatinine is a waste product of creatine metabolism. So creatinine isn't reabsorbed and it is filtered out exclusively through the kidneys. So that's why it is a valuable tool when you're getting blood work and whatnot, to just reference that and see where your kidneys are at and that GFR. And now we need to also talk about how we put all of this together, because we talked a little bit about just the anatomy and whatnot. Talked about how the blood
enters. You have to
the
specifically
kidneys.
ask. Do you have to?
Oh,
do
the
you
lab
have to
work?
specifically ask first?
It might not hurt, honestly. If they're doing, a comprehensive panel or a basic metabolic panel, it should be included. Things like thyroid work and whatnot might need to be specifically asked for, but just make sure they, include the creatinine, the bun, liver levels, AST, ALT. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I talk fast. It's hard to get questions in.
Great. There's a bit of a delay, both of us have.
Gotcha. I talk quick. Sorry, everyone. But what we're going to talk about now, we're going to start getting into, the role of the kidneys and the urinary system and how it affects other body system functions. So the blood, we know, enters the kidneys, carries waste products, electrolytes, and water, filters the blood. And don't get too focused on that, because we're going to talk about the important role of the lymph system with the kidneys next. And we just wanted to separate the two so it's easy to identify how clearly their roles are, important. And the kidneys concentrate or dilute the urine to maintain the water and fluid balance in the body. And it really is a beautiful dance to maintain this fluid balance in the body. It's all automatic. And Colleen's going to discuss how the kidneys and lymph system interact along with other body systems in the detoxification process.
Indeed, yes. So what's really amazing here in the body is that there is no isolated system. We are completely running all these systems at the same time, and they're all working together to function properly. So the healthy function of the kidney and bladder is going to affect or, indicate how well these other systems are functioning as well. So we're going to talk about all the different systems and how they play into kidney function. So the most important connection, especially from the detoxification and Dr. Morse lens, is that renal lymphatic connection. This is how is the lymphatic system feeding into the kidney, and then how is it feeding back out of the kidney. There's actually an influx of lymph fluid, and there's an outgoing valve for lymph fluid as well. So a huge part of kidney functioning is being able to properly process all of that lymph. So as lymph's coming in, it's not actually direct, there's no direct tube that sends it to the kidneys. We dump all of our lymph into right below the clavicle here into the heart space, and then the blood carries it. It basically becomes part of blood plasma, which has all the waste, all of the cellular waste and whatnot in it. And that blood plasma moves into the kidneys, and the kidneys process it. So lymph becomes part of blood at that point. Once it's in the kidneys do the role of removing the waste and excreting it from the body. But then there's also a lymphatic valve going out. There's only 3 different ways that fluids can leave the kidneys, either venous through circulation, urethral, which is, I don't think I said that right, but that is just urinating essentially, and then lymphatic. So it can, so if, some of that waste product isn't processed fully in the kidney, it can move back out to the lymph to be recycled through the lymphatic system. Or if there's any excess pressure in the kidney, the lymph is considered a safety valve, right? Because if we've got this extra valve that will take out some of that fluid pressure, it can really help support a healthy fluid pressure amount in the kidney, right? So a safety valve and the lymph essentially means that, yeah, if there's any excess pressure, the kidney might be not functioning properly, it might be a little bit lax or sluggish. We're going to talk about that in a moment with some protocols. Then your lymph really needs to be online. It needs to be working properly to take that fluid back out and reprocess it through the lymphatic system again. So that's that connection. And then there's so many others. So the circulatory system is a no-brainer. All fluids enter the kidney via the circulatory system. So all blood is delivering oxygenated blood to the kidneys. Okay. Then you have the endocrine system, which, makes a lot of sense. You've got the adrenal glands that are sitting right on top of the kidneys, ad for near, renal for kidney. So very close connection here between these two systems. Think about fight or flight mode. You release that cortisol, that stress hormone, you totally feel it in your kidneys. I don't know if you've ever had one of those really extreme fight or flight moments where the first thing you need to do is relieve yourself. Like you just have to go to the bathroom. So that's just playing into that fight or flight response and that dance between the kidney and the adrenals. So the adrenals also produce and release aldosterone from the adrenal glands, which acts on the kidneys to regulate electrolyte and fluid balance. This connection is essential for maintaining proper blood pressure and electrolyte levels in the body. So another really fascinating connection between the kidney and another body system is the skin. The skin is what Dr. Morse calls the third kidney because we sweat, right? So fluid is leaving the body not just via the kidney or not via just the urinary tract, but also through the skin. And as we sweat, we also see that some toxins show up on the surface of the skin with that sweat, urea via the sweat glands and urea via urine. So the same stuff is being removed both ways. So again, if the kidneys are more lax or they're having a hard time filtering and pressure might be building up in the system, supporting the health of your skin is a great way to support a way for that pressure to be released a different direction via the skin. And then you've got the liver. And the liver skin connection is really fascinating. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But liver on its own does break down certain substances into water-soluble compounds. So that makes them easier for the kidneys to filter and excrete. So even the liver and stuff that's moving through the GI tract is going to end up being processed by the kidneys, some of it. So again, the whole point of saying all this is we just need to keep an awareness around the health and wellness of all of our body systems in order to ensure both the health of the kidneys and bladder and that the kidney and bladder can do what it needs to do thanks to all these other systems being online. And then Jenn is going to tie that all up with a bow for you.
Hopefully a pretty bow here. So there's common questions, and these are just 2 examples that we receive involve health issues related to blood pressure and prostate health. And really, as we understand now, I think everybody does by this point, is impaired kidney function really does lead to an impaired function in other body systems. It's just quite a ripple effect because of the accumulation of wastes and they're not being eliminated. So blood pressure and the kidneys, yes, they are related. You've heard Dr. Morse talk about the adrenals sitting on top of the kidneys, you know, your systolic and diastolic relationship in those numbers. And the autonomic nervous system, primarily the sympathetic portion, can increase or decrease that renal blood flow by constricting or dilating renal arterioles, and it regulates blood pressure automatically. So like Colleen mentioned before, it's not something we really have to think about. It's just automatically done. You think about, you know, try to comprehend what your kidneys, your lymph, and your circulatory systems are processing on a second by second basis. So you can see how the kidneys work with other physiological processes in the body, and that one weakness will affect another. So the elimination of wastes and excess salt and support of the adrenals really helps with regulating blood pressure naturally. And on that note too, acidic and heavy meat diets, excess salt, all of that can place stress on the kidneys, and it can really impair the kidneys' function, especially when it needs to clear these excess salts out in the water. And if it can't, well, this leads to increased fluid volume. That's more of a burden on the heart, attention, the toll it can take on the vascular system in general or the rest of the body. So really, again, we got to say be mindful of your diet. And this ties into also too with the prostate. An enlarged prostate, which you know, we know as a result of acidosis and whatnot, can restrict the elimination of urine. And if you're not able to eliminate your urine properly, that can damage the kidneys. So you have to keep an alkaline diet. Yes, guys can do Kegels too, and you need to stay hydrated, not just with water, but these fruit juices, veggie juices, these excellent cleansers and alkaline foods for sure. But so
All right,
these are just two of them. So how do
do a
we go out?
Kegel right now.
While you're sitting there, be productive, keep busy. So yeah, how do we go about supporting the kidneys in their function? Through diet and herbs and, you know, detoxification, as Dr. Morse relays to us. And that's what we're going to get into now, is protocols for using Dr. Morse's formulas. And we're going to highlight some key herbs in Dr. Morse's formulations and just show you and help guide you into your selection. So now we'll talk about a little bit general health to start, I guess, our urinary foundation for a protocol. So we know each of the body's systems has a unique job to support the body as a whole. We know the urinary system has that role in elimination and fluid regulation in the body. So if we don't eliminate our wastes properly, then we accumulate congestion interstitially, and that's around the cells and within the cells, leading to the deterioration of the cells. I couldn't get that word out apparently, and their function. So it's all about the cells. So along with correcting our digestive processes, our absorption, utilization, and optimizing elimination, we can restore our energy, our overall health, and just the state of the cell. And the most basic herbal formula supports are the kidney and bladder formulas and the lymph drainage formulas. And even we're going to show you on the next slide, the kidney tea. So we're going to explore protocols for common urinary system ailments in the next several slides, and review the importance of diet and talk about the herbs too. So what would a general health foundation look like, let's say? And it's whether you're between cleanses, you just want to support your kidneys in general, or even if you have a more pressing need, these formulas are actually an excellent place to start. So remember to always consider other weaknesses and whatnot that you have. Don't Google it, honestly, your symptoms. You know, listen to your body, ask yourself some really good questions, and start working with what you know. And these are 3 good formulas if you want to start simple. Good way to start. Pairing a kidney formula with a lymph drainage formula is important in the support of facilitating that proper removal of wastes from the body. And the kidney tea is an excellent complement to any protocol to just naturally stimulate that kidney function. And Colleen's going to talk a little bit about why kidneys and bladder daily is a good formula to start with.
Yeah, and as you can see, it says up at the top there, Dr. Morse always pairs a kidney bladder with a lymphatic. So you're going to see on all of our protocols these two being paired, whether it's a daily or one of the different kind of variables of strength. And that's just because of the extreme interconnectedness of these two systems and how they're both primary eliminatory systems that work together to keep the body detoxified. So the daily is just great because it's like so if you're wanting to support the optimal function of your kidney and bladder daily is the best option. It's just because it's got this great mild blend of cordyceps we're going to talk about in a moment, which is a wonderful adaptogen, goldenrod, horsetail, corn silk. So it's really good at supporting tone, function, and fluidity within the urinary tract. And it's just, yeah, just great daily toner. Again, like Jen said, whether you are in between detoxes or you're just feeling like, hey, it's winter and I want to support my kidneys, and then that would be a great daily formula for you. So why are cordyceps so great? Cordyceps are really up and coming adaptogen, although of course they've been around for many, many years. What's fascinating about the cordyceps mushroom is that it's actually a parasitic spore that attacks this caterpillar or various other types of critters. And the spore mummifies the larva or moth or whatnot, and then it slowly mummifies it and then sprouts this mushroom out of the brains of, which is, where all the nutrients are. So it's
Amazing.
basically eating their brains. It's the zombie adaptogen, if you will. It's yeah, really great. And so like it grew in such great popularity because there's just tons of great research coming out of both. I mean, not only was it used traditionally in traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda for a long time. The region of the world that it comes from is actually in the alpine meadows of Tibet, interestingly enough. That's kind of where it was first discovered. Um, so yeah, there's all this really interesting research that's being done in not so much in the United States, but in China and India, where it's being studied for tonic benefits for the nervous, reproductive, immune, respiratory, circulatory, and digestive systems. So it's really just one of those, you take it daily. It's wonderful at helping to support and build the kind of vitality of the body long term, as most adaptogens are. They're really, you're going to see more benefit from using them in the long run, not so much in the short term. So again, that's why it's in our daily formula, right? Because it's more of a tonic kind of long-term outlook. Like, how are we going to support our kidney and bladder for the long run? Cordyceps is a great option there. Great. And so then we also are going to talk about plantain for our daily kind of supportive formulas for the urinary system. Plantain is in both the kidney tea and lymphatic drainage daily. And plantain, I'm not talking about the fruit. Believe it or not, there is a noxious weed, one of the most common lawn weeds in the world after dandelion, which is called plantain. In fact, back when I lived in San Francisco, I found more plantain growing out of the cracks in the sidewalks than I have growing in my backyard here in Sonoma County. So it's definitely very good at its job, and it's really kind of gentle, lovely herb where it's great for a poultice. You can just chew with a leaf and then put it on. A splinter is my favorite thing to use plantain
Oh,
poultice on. But it's got this drawing action to it, right? Because it's got both this kind of slimy, hydrating piece to it with all the allantoin in it, and it also has a very astringent tannic piece to it with the tannin content in it. So the way that those two actions are working with each other is, at least with a splinter, I've seen that it's kind of lubricates as well as draws out. And so it works really well for that. The lubrication is really nice for all of the different eliminatory pathways of the body. Imagine how that kind of sliminess is just washing over those tissues and really keeping them hydrated. And then the tannin piece is astringent, right? Astringent means kind of tonifying and tightening, not so much drying. And so the combination of like tightening and hydrating is really beautiful for kind of maintaining healthy tissue function throughout the urinary tract.
awesome. I think that as you described, astringing and astringent, I think that just ties everything in with what Dr. Morse says, like with the herbs and the diet, just to see how important it is with tonifying.
Mhm.
So thank you for commenting on that.
Yeah. Astringent is a harder one to understand. It's actually considered a taste as well, but it's more of a mouthfeel than it is an actual flavor. So it's it's its own thing. But I call it a, sometimes I call herbs that have both the tannins and the mucilage, I call them mucomodulators. So whether you need more
What a word.
hydration or less hydration, they're really good at balancing things out.
Awesome.
So those are our herbs. And now we'll talk about kidney support,
Yep. So building
getting to
off
the
of
imbalances in the
exactly,
system.
yeah.
Hmm.
We're building off of the general support, these three herbs that formulas that we just talked about. So overall kidney support. Okay, first think about what you're consuming. The kidneys are very sensitive, like most, even the liver, most organs are acidic foods like coffee, carbonated drinks, meat, other processed and refined foods. And consuming these foods and beverages on a regular basis really does inhibit normal kidney function. That can lead to problems with urination and the elimination of waste in general. You can feel physically just sluggish, and the effects of these irritating, stimulating foods after it's worn off, you just crash. I'm sure so many of you have experienced this before. So aside from making the transition to a more alkaline diet and cleansing the body, on a deeper level, you can support the kidneys even beyond the general maintenance and help restore them to a healthier state. And we have to detoxify and clean. We have to create that regenerative environment to really support the kidneys. So what does a protocol look like if we're going to do that, at least as far as a foundation? And on this slide, you're going to see the suggestion of the kidneys and bladder drain, the lymphatic drainage gentle mover, the adrenal support, and the liver skin. And obviously, you can select the form that suits you best, whether it's tincture, capsule, whatnot. So kidney and bladder drain is listed here, and Colleen's going to go into some of this a little bit more, but it has a natural diuretic action that can bring the kidneys online when they're sluggish. The lymph drainage gentle mover is just a really gentle way of supporting the healthy flow of lymphatic fluid, and we know it aids the kidneys in filtration and removal of waste out of the body. Previously discussed the adrenal and kidney connection with regulating blood pressure and how the adrenals release hormones as signals to the kidneys to absorb and release minerals just to help maintain that homeostasis in the body. And then the liver, good grief, this is such an important organ that, we should always be supporting this too, but especially with the amount of lymph and blood that can pass through the liver at any time to filter toxins and waste, and just making it easier for the kidney to filter them out of the body too. So,
Hmm.
Colleen, why kidney and bladder drain versus daily compared to the last protocol?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, drain is just more activated than daily. It's got more of those natural diuretics in it with parsley, juniper, and hydrangea. So it's really activating the kidney. We're talking about sluggish kidneys here who might not be completely online. You might be finding some of those things we talked about earlier with the pH of your urine or the color of your urine being off or just not feeling right, kind of some sort of systemic acidosis. This is potentially your kidneys are not filtering properly. And so what this formula is doing is it's really got some more kind of stimulating, activating herbs in it that are going to kind of, tickle your kidneys a little bit, if you will, with all those phytochemicals to be like, hey, wake up, let's do this. And so yeah, so we'll talk about some of those herbs right now. Why do they work the way that they do? So parsley is kind of an overshadowed herb, right? This is a common culinary herb that most of us probably have in our spice rack. I just wrote a great blog about parsley, benefits of parsley, so definitely go check it out. A lot of interesting little factoids about this fun little herb. If you're looking at this leaf, you'll see that it's in the same family as celery and carrot. Doesn't that leaf look like it could even almost be a celery leaf?
Yes.
And because of that, they share a very similar volatile oil called APIIN, apin. Let's say that that's how it's spelled. That's how it's pronounced, I should say. Uh, and so this little volatile oil, it's what makes it smell, got that like kind of parsley flavor and smell. It's somewhat similar to other plants in that category. And those volatile oils can be mildly stimulating, right? They also are really good at helping to balance out any microbial imbalances within the kidney. So that volatile oil content's really helpful for that. But the natural diuretic piece, most studies are showing that it's probably sorry about that, the high potassium content in parsley and a lot of other natural diuretics. That's what's actually retaining more fluid within the kidney so that we are urinating more frequently. And it's not so much Anyway, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. But another really cool piece of parsley is that it's a great for removing heavy metals from the body. There's a study that I linked to in the blog that's all about how they did a whole study on using this fresh parsley leaf and stem, and they ball it all up and they filter a bunch of water through it. And there's definitely a lot of bonding between the parsley and all these heavy metals, specifically lead in this study. So that's super fascinating, right? Not only can we apply that to water filtration for, just general water drinking, but also our bodies are mostly made of water. And so we can apply it internally, right? And so for a long time, it's been seen as this great metal detoxer herb, and it's been used that way. We have the metal detox formula, which has parsley as the primary ingredient. And so it's helping to not only kind of stimulate the kidneys, wake them up, bring them back online, but it also supports the removal of these heavy metals, which is really great.
And if you don't mind, just briefly, because I know you got to keep going with the herbs, but comment on diuretic, because I know people can frequently associate that term with like these pharmaceutical water pills and
Mhm.
just how, aggressive they are. But if you could just kind of go into the difference between the herbal diuretic, because they are so balanced and it's
Mhm.
just so natural. Yeah, just reassure everybody, it's
Absolutely.
not quite the same,
Yeah, it's definitely not
by
the
any
same.
means.
In fact, some of the studies that I'm reading, they're just saying, no way, okay, we're telling you that it has this mild diuretic effect, but in no way could you compare this to a pharmaceutical. So a lot of pharmaceuticals are isolated and very strong. And yes, they are going to make you run to the bathroom. Whereas a lot of our natural diuretics, well, all of them, right? So a plant-based herbal remedy is always going to be, so parsley, for example, it's not only going to contain all this potassium, which is great for stimulating the kidneys and causing this diuretic effect. It also has all these, a whole rainbow of other phytochemicals in it that are balancing and counteracting that so that it's not nearly as intense as what people think of when they think of the term diuretic. But yes, if you are drinking a large cup of parsley and nettle and dandelion tea, you are going to have to pee. I mean, not only are you introducing a bunch of excess water into your body, but you're also introducing all these diuretics. And most herbal remedies, honestly, have some diuretic aspect to them because they're so mineral rich. But yeah, so stay close to a bathroom for sure. They're still going to make you pee, but it's not nearly in the intensity as a pharmaceutical. Great question, Jen.
Awesome. 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 Thanks for explaining it too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then we've got chickweed, which is also in kidneys and bladder drain, as well as lymphatic drainage, gentle mover. It's a really sweet herb that's actually popping up probably for you right about now. So it's a very early spring herb. It's a wild edible green that tastes delicious. It's great in salads, and it's got this wonderful combination of phytochemicals that I love so much. So saponins, love them. You've probably heard me talk about them till the cows come home. The saponins are these molecules that are slightly water soluble and oil soluble. So what happens is they have a soaping effect. And so as they're running through the tissues of your body, they're actually kind of scrubbing a little bit, which can be mildly irritating, but it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's irritating in that way where like the body is used to being under stress and therefore a little bit of irritation just kind of wakes up the tissues. So it's got the saponins for that and for cleansing and kind of restoring the tissues of the urinary tract, but it also has the polysaccharide content, the mucilage, the slime, and that we love for the urinary system because it's just all the series of holding tanks and tubes that need to be cleansed as well as kind of restored, right? So it's a really great, again, washing over the tissues of the urinary tract. And as it's doing that, having this hydrating and kind of calming and cooling effect, if you will. So yeah, that's chickweed. And if you can find it, it's going to be growing in a little shady spot in your yard where all your weeds like to grow. And it's going to have a white flower because scarlet pimpernel is a very close look-alike to it. And you don't want to eat that one. So make sure you've properly identified it. But if you have, good eating. And burdock. So just real quickly, burdock is in both liver skim and kidney bladder drain. Burdock is an alterative, which is an herb that is specifically good at supporting the healthy function of eliminatory pathways in the body. And so burdock is specific to the liver skin eliminatory pathway, which we talked about earlier, how there's this really great kind of third kidney, which is helping to relieve some of that pressure that might build up in the body. And so burdock is just wonderful. It's wonderful to eat. It's wonderful to drink as a tea. It's great in our herbal tinctures and glycerates that we sell. And it's just a tonic herb that supports healthy liver function as well as that liver to skin eliminatory pathway. So definitely worth intertwining into your daily routine. And
So,
on to the next imbalance.
yeah, increased urination. It's a good segue from diuretic to this, I think. So our bladders fill and nerve signals are sent to the brain to trigger that need to urinate. And this coordinates the relaxation and contraction of pelvic floor muscles in the urethra, and this pushes the urine out. So, I mean, a multitude of reasons or names to, talk about frequent or increased urination or these issues. So whether it's because of stress or you're just not able to empty your bladder properly each time or you have frequent urges, there are still signals from the body that something's out of balance and it needs to be addressed. So aside from, poor diet, maybe medications you might be taking, and even the frequency of your bowel movements, there are other factors to consider, especially like support for the connective tissues that make up the urinary system, like the bladder. These are important tissues that contain an intricate network of nerves and blood vessels and lymph vessels. So considering all this, we want to make sure that we have some basic formulas as part of the detoxification protocol, to have a good starting point to support these imbalances and really identify what's contributing to, your increased urination, urgency, and whatnot. So where would we start? And on this slide, you can see too where we have the kidneys and bladder restore, the bone and connective tissue, and then males could consider adding the prostate health. So the bone and connective tissue formula can support the tissues of the urinary system and strengthen them, like I just mentioned. And for males, again, going back to the prostate, and if it's enlarged, that impacts the elimination of urine, and that's your overall urinary system function. So it's a good formula to add in acute situations, or you can work periodically with this formula in a maintenance protocol. And restore, I tend to favor the kidney and bladder restore just for me personally, but what about this formula makes it so special, Colleen, for others, especially in this case?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kidney bladder restore contains herbs that are moistening and diuretic as well as stimulating. So it's just kind of checking a lot of boxes. It's got some really interesting herbs in it, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. It's a formula that's designed to support the urinary tract's restoration and renewal of proper kidney function. So, I mean, it's said in the name, right? But what's going on with frequent urination is potentially, again, some sort of strengthening that needs to happen, right? So we need to support the kind of rebuilding of the system, and there's no better formula than restore. And then bone and connective tissue is a great kind of pairing with that because it has the horsetail, and horsetail, as we're going to see in a moment, is just a wonderful herb high in silica, which supports the structure and function of the urinary tract. So restore, rebuild, just that's kind of the name of the game here. So corn silk is one that we're going to kind of do the deep dive into now. So this corn at various stages, it's actually when it's still a young corn bud and the silk is coming out that it's the most rich in vitamin K. But yeah, corn silk is the hairs of immature stalks, as it says here. It's high in allantoin, which I've mentioned earlier. It's not only great for helping to support like the sloughing of skin, but it's also very demulcent. So it supports the softening and moistening of the epithelial cells lining the urinary tract. So if you've never had corn silk tea, I definitely recommend you try it if you live in an area that produces a lot of corn, or if you like to eat corn and you like to get it in the husk. Then as you're husking your corn, is that how you say that?
I think so.
You save your you save your silk and you make a hot infusion of tea with that, and it's just super mild and sweet, a lot like sweet corn, and just mildly diuretic and really lovely for the urinary system. So a great one to just include for that. And again, it's just building that epithelial lining of the urinary tract is a big part of why we love corn silk. And horsetail, as I mentioned just a moment ago, is really high in silica. So that silica supports the structure and function of the urinary tract. So again, we're talking about strengthening, fortifying, supporting the rebuilding of the urinary system, if you will. So These are all great for that. If any obstructions in the urinary tract might have shown up, like this could be a really great way to kind of heal. That's not the right word. I mean, it is the word I want to use, but I can't use that word. So help to restore and support the health of the urinary tract lining. So horsetail is great for that. Yeah, horsetail is a really cool herb. It hasn't changed much. It's been around since prehistoric days, and it's reproduces by spore, much like a mushroom. So it's just kind of got a really cool story as well. And it's very hydrating. If you were to find horsetail in the wild and you were very thirsty, you could suck on the stalk like a straw and get some water.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, cool.
And then saw palmetto. So this is another Dr. Morse favorite. I think partly because it's native or endemic to peninsular
Yep,
Florida, where Dr. Morse lives.
right out my window.
So yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's got these, it's a member of the palm family. It's got a serrated saw-like palm frond, and it's got a little bit of a soapy taste to it, and it's high in phytosterols, flavonoids. Flavonoids means that it's an antioxidant-rich herb, so that's always great for helping to kind of balance out and support any free radical damage in the urinary tract. And it's also specific to male health. So it's in our prostate health formula. It's also in bone and connective tissue support, but essentially some of the constituents within it are helping to restore healthy levels and balanced levels of testosterone. So those are the three herbs we're going to highlight for frequent urination. And then now we're going into our final imbalance of the urinary
Yes.
system that's very common for folks.
Yeah, urinary discomfort. And we can give this one a bunch of names too, and so many more symptoms that accompany it, like burning while urinating, the urgency, cramping, discomfort in the pelvic region. And so we're going to go over a couple phases you can incorporate with an herbal protocol, just basics. Remember, take into consideration, whether it's how acute or chronic this is for you and other body system weaknesses, and what you're eating. Staying hydrated and avoiding acidic beverages and foods are incredibly important. And near the end, we'll talk about, additional modalities, but some even applying castor oil packs to the abdomen over the kidneys using moist heat, not electric heat. Don't use electric heat. To promote that blood flow and relieve discomfort can also be, very helpful in these cases. So the first phase we can talk about, and we'll build on this in the second phase. We have on this slide, it'll show the kidneys and bladder restore, the lymphatic gentle mover, parasite M and kidney T. And we've touched on the restore and the gentle mover already, and even the kidney T, but the parasite M or parasite micro, the herbs in this formula support the removal of unwanted organisms that can contribute to the discomfort that are often associated with, that urinary burning or just general irritation that we experience. And you work with this for a little while, a couple weeks to a month, but then you can always start to build a little bit further in the second phase. You still need a kidney and bladder formula. You still need a lymph drainage, and you could continue with the parasite M. But in this section, we're just going to highlight three: the kidneys and bladder hydrate, the lymph drainage daily, and then we've got the ultimate herbal blend here. So this is a good formulation that I feel like it gets overlooked a little bit. We touched a little bit on the holistic health webinar at the end of the year last year, but it really is a great detoxification blend and assists the body in waste removal and supports healthy lymph flow. Are you massaging your kidneys, Colleen?
I'm actually massaging my thighs. So I've been sitting for so
Sitting for a
long.
while. Everybody get up and move if you need to. Get the lymph flowing a
Yeah,
little bit.
do it. Get things moving. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Stretch break. So I love these two phases. We're talking about discomfort when urinating. We can't say much more about it than that, but you can, like Jen said, think of a couple of instances of where this would be happening. Phase one is all about restoring the balance of microbes. And phase two is all about restoring the health of the urinary tract after kind of balance has been made, because things can get pretty thrashed down there. So supporting the kind of rebuilding of healthy tissues through the urinary tract. Hydrate's great for that because it's got marshmallow root in it, which is one of my favorites for urinary tract health. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. Was there anything else you wanted to say about this before we move on to the herbs?
Nope, I figure I'll let you dive right into the herbs. I think people love it.
All right. All right. So juniper berry, which is in our kidney and bladder, it's in every kidney and bladder formula. Okay. So that just goes to show you how wonderful of an affinity it has for the urinary tract. So it has this high volatile oil content. Essential oils is another name for that. It's also high in tannins. So again, it's astringent. Which means it's toning and tightening to the tissues. It's also high in resin. Resin and essential oils combined is a powerhouse for bringing those microbial out, any microbial out of balance, but back into balance, right? For kind of like ridding the body of anything that we don't want, any microbes that shouldn't be there, essentially. So juniper also is not something you want to overdo. It's not something that I would say take this all by itself. You need juniper, especially with kidney discomfort, because it is mildly irritating. So you need to be careful with that, right? So that's why we have these other formulas to balance it out. Let's see. Jen, did you have something to say about that? Or did I already cover it?
No, just I think you were covering it with the irritation part. We're discussing how, other herbs in Dr. Morse's formulation really just balance out that irritation effect of the juniper berry. You need a little bit of it, but it's balanced out with the other herbs. Yeah.
That's it. That's exactly it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the other herbs in that formula, so that's in every single one of the formulas, like I mentioned. And so then if we were to hone in on kidney bladder restore and kidney bladder drain, uva ursi is in those. And uva ursi, again, really high in some tannins, arbutin, and flavonoids. So uva ursi is the cousin to madrone. It's commonly used by traditional herbalists to support the healthy bacterial microbiome of the urinary tract. So a lot like juniper in that way. They're really good synonymous pair. So that's why I love that they're both in these formulas together. So it's especially good when things have fallen out of balance, just like we're talking about with our kidney discomfort. And it's both great urinary system tonic for modulating tissue hydration and function. So uva ursi, it's kind of one of the first herbs I ever learned about as an herbalist for herbs that have a great affinity for the urinary tract, especially for this type of imbalance that we're talking about right now. And so marshmallow, again, it's in a lot. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's a fun word to say. So go ahead.
There's so many fun words. I get off on all the fun words. Mucilaginous polysaccharides. That's another fun word pairing that I love.
Yes.
Marshmallows in hydrate and restore kidney bladder formulas as well as kidney tea. It's just got an incredible affinity for the urinary tract. If you didn't know this about marshmallow, all marshmallow candy comes from an original OG formula that was marshmallow root. And it's a cold infusion usually that you do. So room temperature or cold water combined with marshmallow root, a bunch of it, makes a very, very thick, slippery, demulcent drink. And I suppose if you cook that down, I've never actually made true marshmallows before from marshmallow root, but you cook it down and you end up with this sticky, sweet substance. So yeah,
Very
the
cool.
old school marshmallow, it's where it got its name. All parts of this plant are mucilaginous. You can chew on the flower and the leaf, and it'll also have that slippery, slimy feel in your mouth. But as we talked about with these wonderful mucilaginous herbs, they're here to support the restoration of the urinary tract. So supposing you did have a microbial imbalance that came with a lot of discomfort, that is something that this marshmallow is so wonderful for soothing all of that kind of hot, irritated conditions like that. So yeah, it's great that it's in those formulas. And also I always recommend, especially because we're just about to talk therapeutics, although we only have 2 minutes left, so we probably won't have much time, but drinking this as a cold infusion of marshmallow root, if you're kind of getting into that phase 2 of supporting your kidneys during a time of discomfort, it's just great to get as much marshmallow in as you can to really kind of flush out and wash those tissues with this hydrating herb. Okay, how do we want to squeeze all this into 2 minutes, Jen?
All right, let's go. Okay, so diet. We emphasize diet above all, and we have in the previous slides too, but alkaline, fruit, veggies. I mean, obviously, fruits are your detoxifiers. And on the next slide, like we've got grapes on this slide, we go to the next slide, we see watermelon and have a list of, fruits like in our subacid category. Well, actually, bananas are in the sweet category, so my error there, but pears, apples, peaches, grapes, melons, remember, eat them alone or leave them alone. You also, on the green side, even though they're not as strong detoxifiers as your fruits, they are incredibly supportive, like the dark leafy greens and even beets. Some people who have beet juice, they feel that pulling and drawing on the kidneys. So that sometimes you need to take a step back. And then as far as fruits are concerned, we get a question a lot about cranberries. And, Dr. Morse has touched on this too. They are acidic and they might alleviate some symptoms, but as far as a lasting effect, because we don't want to have that treatment mentality, we want to focus on the root cause, get to the bottom of it. They, again, are acidic. They don't produce an alkaline ash, so you really don't want to have too many cranberries. I mean, they can make something a little tart if it's too sweet, but really, you don't want to have too many of them. Focus on some of the other fruits that we had listed before. And if you wanted a
I love
juice
that.
recipe,
Dispelling the cranberry myth. Woo! That's
yep,
right. We did it here,
yep,
folks.
yep, screenshot this. Screenshot it, try this recipe out. And if you like it, let us know. Definitely just wash your produce, get organic
Mhm.
when you can. Use, a juice press, masticating juice or centrifuge, whatever you have on hand. Even if you have a, blender, just work with it and enjoy it and give it a
We
try.
actually have this
And,
recipe on the blog. We have a whole
oh,
therapeutics
good.
blog for the urinary system that's on our body systems webinar tab. And so you can go there and copy paste this recipe as well.
Yep, give it a try.
And yes, so a few fun, this is supposed to be a woman doing Kegels. It's a great slide of
Try
a
hard.
girl that's sitting there just like really clenching.
Absolutely.
So training your bladder. There's actually again in that therapeutics blog, if you go to check it out, there's a lot of kind of step-by-step processes for how to do bladder training and how to do Kegels. And I just wanted to mention douching here. I'm a big fan of making an herbal douche. I usually do things like a little bit of what can I think about aloe vera juice and some sage tea, things that are astringent. I usually do it after I finish my cycle for the month just to kind of restore things. And so it is a way to help tone the tissues down there. Obviously, it's not kind of a sitz bath would be another great option here, kind of just for the kind of exit spot of the urethra, right? So
Mhm.
just all different kinds of ways that we can therapeutically help support the kidneys and bladder. And finally, a slide here, another screenshot. If you really need it, then yeah, you've got a lot of work to do. But I think you should probably already know about a lot of these urinary system no-nos. The foods and drinks make a lot of sense, but you might see some interesting things on here. Hot tubs, prolonged bathing, especially hot tubs in places you've never been before, hotel hot tubs and stuff. There's a lot of funky stuff floating around in there, and you have to trust like the chemist on staff to be really good at balancing out the chemistry in a hot tub before you get in it because it can be gross.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, tight synthetic underwear. Don't forget about these things, like there's a lot of contributing factors and a lot of things that we take for granted. And finally, what you've all been waiting for, 20% off using code
Yes.
urinary20. This will last you until Friday night at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, and all of the wonderful formulas we discussed today are on sale using that code. Jen, it was such a pleasure doing this
I know
with
this was
you. I
fun doing
love
this
having a
together.
co-host.
Yes, this
Yes.
is this
We
was
hope
I just thoroughly enjoyed it and I look forward to the rest of the year doing this. I hope everyone else does too.
Yes, me too. We don't have the sign up ready just yet for next month's webinar, but if you enjoyed it, keep an eye out. We will be doing the immune system and specifically honing in on lymphatic system next month with our next Detox Digest webinar. And
Yes.
we're just really grateful for all of you for being here. And until next time, remember, every day is an opportunity to nurture your body, mind, and spirit. Thanks for tuning in to Detox Digest with Dr. Morse's Healing Herbs. Take care, y'all.
Thanks everyone.